we have three very special guests, Michael, Sammie, and Michael's mom, Melissa. And we did a letter with Michael. When did we do the letter? Probably almost a year ago, right?
Yeah. I honestly forgot, but like, I know we did it.
We definitely did it. And Michael wanted to write his letter to Sammie. And Michael has Asperger's, and Michael and Sammie have been friends since first grade. But you remember meeting her in second grade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like we met in first grade, but then like we actually started talking in second grade.
Yeah, that probably was most accurate. Yeah.
Michael, when did you realize, hey, I'm a little different than other kids?
I guess what I felt like, I feel like it was just more based on crowding and like conversations. Like everybody kind of has their own group, especially like early on in like elementary school and middle school. It's like I just felt like I didn't feel like I fit in anywhere. Like it just felt like I was kind of lost. Like I was always trying to go into groups and stuff like that, but just nothing seemed to work. That's kind of just how it felt. And it was pretty hard for me.
Did you ever have a conversation with your mom like, hey mom, I feel a little different than everyone else?
Yeah, I think I did. I think so. It's a little harder to remember since it was a while ago, but like I'm sure I've had conversations before why I was so lonely all the time and like why I just ended up struggling.
Melissa, do you remember him coming up to you as a child and saying, hey mom, I'm lonely in school, I don't have as many friends, or I don't fit in?
Yeah, he went through a series of school transitions. He went to a special education preschool to help him with the communication deficit. At that point, he hadn't been diagnosed with autism. He was diagnosed with a speech and language impairment. And the recommendation at that time, it was a phenomenal preschool, but the recommendation at that time was for him to go to a different elementary school that had a more specialized kindergarten program than our home school. And my understanding at the time was that he would go into that school and he would stay in that school for his entire elementary time. And about halfway through the year, I came to find out that wasn't the case. So by first grade, he had to start in a whole nother school. And that was our actual home school. And that was the year that he met Sammie. So he came in as a new kid, but we lived in the neighborhood the entire time, but kids just weren't familiar with him because he went down a different path. By second grade, he started to express that he felt different. I had confirmation at that point that he was in fact autistic, that he had Asperger's. And I never wanted to tell him until he started expressing feelings, if he expressed feelings of being different or feeling different, because I didn't want him to ever use it as a crutch. As far as I'm concerned, it's just part of who he is, just part of his personality. It's just what makes him work. It makes him fun and engaging and endearing. And I didn't ever want him to feel badly about himself because there was some kind of label attached.
Was it heartbreaking for your 6-year-old to come home and say, Mom, I feel different?
It was heartbreaking that he wasn't accepted. You know, feeling different was never really a problem for me because to me, all kids are different. You know, that whole clique piece, I don't mind him standing out. I don't mind any of my kids standing out, but the fact that he was so lonely and he was, you know, he was sad because he wasn't accepted.
Michael, can you explain to people what Asperger's is?
Like scientifically, honestly, it's basically like more of a communication disorder, because I know there's so many people that kind of are still kind of lost on the autistic scene, but it's like kind of communication. There's like stuff. I apologize to any autistics reading this. I know it's not as important, but I just thought to point it out. There's like high functioning and low functioning autism. Like there's all different levels. I'm more on the high functioning side. However, like I think me, as many other autistic people see it, like we see it as just another part of who we are. Like we don't need a cure. We don't need to be changed or like controlled. Like we just live our lives the way we want to, and we just want to have the support. Of course, we don't want to be controlled, but to kind of be accepted. That's where it comes down to.
Do you remember when you first started to become friends with Sammie, or when you guys first met? And Sammie, do you remember when you first met Michael?
Yeah, so I guess the way it sort of started with me is my younger brother, he also has autism. Michael, what do you like? You know, Ryan, like
Yeah.
you guys are kind of in a similar place, right?
Yeah.
And so what I knew about my brother, he doesn't have Asperger's, but it's like a similar, like struggling in the social stuff in a similar way. And when I was growing up, my parents were like, you know, you always got to look out for Ryan because kids can be really mean. And if someone's a little different, people can be really nasty. And I met Michael and I'm like, hey, I notice a lot of similarities. Let me reach out.
Already
And then I met
correct.
Michael and I'm like, oh my God, this kid's awesome. So
Mhm.
like, that's kind of where it started, where I was like, this is someone who I think, like, you know, when there's like a new kid at school and everyone's like, oh my God, new person. And then that kind of fades within like a week. And I was like, this is someone who I think needs someone to reach out. And I did. And I'm really glad I did. And I think I think that was really more in second grade when I noticed we were in the same class. And I was like, this is someone who like think needs a buddy. And I'm happy to be the buddy. And then it grew into like a really great friendship.
For sure, I think like, and I do remember like several things, especially like I think like I remember us being like within second grade and just like a couple years after that, us fourth grade, and then by coincidence fifth grade. It's just like being in the same class. It kind of really helps, kind of just seeing each other. And it's like I don't know what caused this to just take off, but it's like our friendship kind of just soared from there. And I think it's kind of soared even more like now that we're a little bit more distant apart. But I think it's like, yeah, it's really cool, and I'm glad.
How
that
did it make you
happened.
feel when you
Oh.
were struggling with that loneliness and you were struggling with not having a lot of friends and feeling left out? And Sammie, who's just a nice, warm, kind human being, befriends you and you hit it off. How did that make you feel?
Like I feel like I was a little more accepted, honestly. Like just know I have someone is just very kind to me and just very supportive instead of just kind of shut me out like a lot of other kids did. It kind of just helped a lot and just made me feel a little more comfortable with myself. Obviously, I always tried to do my own thing, but it's like I just prefer to have friendships as well, so I could have people to talk to and people to count on. And that's like I feel like it's kind of just what started to help with friendships, especially through like college and stuff like that.
Melissa, as a mom, do you remember when Michael came home and said, "Hey, I made a friend. Her name is Sammie, and she's really nice to me."
He did. He didn't express much, and again, that's because of the nature of the disability, if you will. But he did have a different vibe. You know, like he would talk about somebody being nice and hanging out with him at the playground, or you know, playing by the swings, or just even being spoken to or brought in. I remember they had it was like a fifth grade end of the year dance kind of thing, and she had a little get together at her house and invited him, and we have this cute picture of the two of them like in a very weird awkward positions, you know, standing there taking a picture. And fast forward to years later, Michael decided in his junior year of high school that he wanted to graduate early. So he decided that he was going to do his junior year and senior year of high school in 1 year. And he did it. And that fast forwarded to prom. So the first thing he says to me is, "Mom, look," he goes, "you know, I'd really like to ask Sammie." And I'm like, "Michael, like she's in New York. I don't know, you know, because now we're in Texas." So
yeah, they moved. How old was Michael when you moved?
he was going into 8th grade.
Okay.
I think
was going
he
into
sprung
8th.
it on me like the last day of 7th grade. And I was like, summer's about to start. You can't spring this on me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And they spent a lot of
I
time.
think there's like the picture from the letter. We have that picture of us at the selfie. And I
Yep.
think that's when Michael turned to me, was like, I'm moving away. And I'm like, good, you told me before we took the selfie.
Yeah. But they've stayed friends, which is it's very sweet, and it's a very
As a mom, how much is that a relief to you to know that somebody has your son's back and somebody is kind to him when maybe other children weren't?
I think that it's a relief to know that there are people out there that will accept him for him. You know, I mean, he and Sammie have this history because, you know, they were 6, 7 years old when they met, and sometimes they'll talk often, and sometimes it might be months that go by, you know, just like any other friendship. And they never skip a beat. They never skip a beat. I mean, we've been back to New York a couple times and they always hang out, or she flew down for prom. She and her mom came and they took that same picture again all those years later, which was super
The,
cute.
like super awkward picture where I'm like,
Yep. Yep.
we have like
Um,
ridiculous poses.
But they, like it's very sweet that it's genuine. It's a genuine situation. And Michael, I think Michael can be Michael and he doesn't feel pressure with Sammie.
Mhm.
They can talk or say nothing and be in the same room and hang out. And it's like, there's no words to express how special their friendship is. Because at the end of the day, I think they'll both be there for each other no matter what. It's like any social circles, you're not going to talk to everybody every single day and assume that, well, that's what makes a friend.
Michael, did having Sammie as a friend help you to have the confidence to make more friends?
I mean, I made a couple of friends like in high school a little bit, but like I think it helped a little bit, kind of just knowing what to expect, kind of. And I do know someone else that I do talk to in high school. I mean, we don't talk often as much, but I think that if I were to talk to her, she would definitely talk to me for sure. But yeah, it's kind of helped, and especially in college, because now I'm I'm like helping to run an organization basically, and yeah, so it's like I kind of have a group of people that I can count on, like as friends or as people that I could really count on when I need them most, for sure.
And it all started with Sammie. She was
Yeah.
that first friend. Sammie, we didn't tell you about the letter before we published it, which I usually don't do. I like to give people a heads up. I was like, I think this is okay. What was your reaction when you read this letter, which Michael basically said you had a huge impact on his life, on his confidence, and on his happiness?
Yeah, so it was crazy. I mean, I remember I had a friend over, we were just like doing homework together, and I was like, I'm gonna take a break, and I checked my phone, and I was like, oh, hey, someone tagged me in something on Facebook, and it was the letter. And then I'm like sitting there tearing up, and my study buddy friend was like, are you okay? And I'm like, it's just a really like I was like, I was crying, like I like freaked out. And Michael, did I FaceTime you or did I FaceTime you the next day? I know I texted you.
Yeah, you definitely texted me. I gotta pull it up, but yeah, you definitely texted me as soon as.
And I was like, I texted him like, oh my God, this is the nicest thing anyone's ever done. Like I was freaking out. It was just so great.
Well, how has Michael added to your life?
I think I can say it in a couple ways. Like one, I just ended up doing stuff with him that I feel like I'd never do by myself. Like I got to go to prom with him, which was just amazing. Whenever I visit him, we just do all sorts of really cool stuff. When he visits me, we just have like special experiences that I feel like I wouldn't have with other people. We have this like weird history that, I mean, I don't have a ton of close friends either. And so it's not like I have another person be like, oh my God, do you remember in 4th grade when whatever happened? And Mike will be like, oh my God, I totally do. And it's just such a nice feeling. So it's like to have someone like who's just like on the same wavelength as me, like even if we don't talk for a while. And I think Melissa said it perfectly, how like we can just not talk for months and then just we reconnect and just never skip a beat. And I feel like it's like I never feel like I'm saying the wrong thing with him. Like I feel like I have some friends where, I send a text and I'm like, oh my God, was that like the weirdest thing ever? Like I feel like with Michael, there's no like wrong thing. Like we're just we see each other's weirdness and like there's no issue with it.
So just as much as he feels like he can be himself with you, you feel the same way about him.
Absolutely.
That's really special. Did you realize how much you impacted him and how he felt about your friendship and your role in his life and his growth?
I don't think I realized it as much as a kid, but I mean, we don't really think about that much in elementary school. I don't think any of us had very profound thoughts at the time. But I feel like even then, just knowing I had, like I said, having like a buddy was really nice. And then when he asked me to prom, I was like, at that moment, I think I was like, oh my God, this is someone that like I know I'm friends with, but there's just so much more now. And I was like, I mean, I think I have the video of him asking me to prom. Like I had just gotten home from the gym, so I was in like gym clothes and sweaty. I'm like, what's happening? Like it's but yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's like I think that was the moment I'm like, oh my God, like this is someone that I have like we're not just friends, like this is a really special relationship here.
Sammie, what advice would you have for kids or for people who don't befriend people that are different than them, or who may not be as kind, or who may be a bully to people who are different than them? What are they missing out on, and what would you say to those people?
I think, if you're gonna be mean to someone that's different from you, it's almost like, what are you scared? Like, do you think their weirdness is gonna like rub off on you? And I think that's what sometimes people are scared of. And it's like, just be kind, like befriend someone, discover something that you didn't know you like. Like, I knew I liked Mario Kart. Michael has unleashed this Mario Kart beast inside of me, I think. And it's like, befriend someone, like just find out something new about them, and then it's just about yourself. Like, you're missing out on knowing great people if you're only surrounding yourself with people that are like you.
I think that is so true. Michael, what is your favorite memory with Sammie?
Okay, honestly, I think I have a lot of memories. Oh my gosh. I think for sure, I think as of right now, just like I think when she surprised me for my 18th birthday, that she flew down, like I didn't even realize it. And it's funny because at the time my dad was working at the airport pretty much close by, and I thought it was just okay, just a work thing or something.
Mhm.
Honestly, I don't even pay attention because I'm like, I don't really care so much about dad's job a lot, but it's like it basically the idea, like I always check like for Disney or Nintendo news or like videos or stuff like that. And it's like dad literally had to tell me to look up in order to see it was her because
You were
Aw,
on your phone, and I was just
Yeah.
standing there, and he was like, look up.
aw. Michael, would you have gone to prom had you not had Sammie to go with?
yeah, no, definitely not. Like, yeah, honestly, it was her or I'm not doing it because like it's just I'd rather have the experience with someone that I trust and I know I'm just gonna have a long friendship than just someone who like kind of just does it for the sake
Okay.
of the experience, honestly.
And to to attest to that, you know, because Michael put himself in the situation he did by graduating a year early, he really didn't know that many of those seniors.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
So again, here he is putting himself out there because promise an experience that you should experience, but because he had her, he didn't even think about it. He just saw it as I'm going to prom, I'm graduating high school, Sammie's going to be with me, it's going to be great.
He was able to be excited instead of
Yeah.
anxious.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he most likely would not have gone because he didn't know anybody really.
Michael, I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Sammie. What would you say to people who are not nice to someone who's different than them, or afraid to talk to someone who's different than them, or who even bullies someone who's different?
I think that there's definitely mistakes that they've made for sure, honestly, for bullying. Like it's one thing when you don't want to like if you're afraid to reach out to them or just like not realizing it. But it's like another to just completely target someone that's
Yeah.
different than you. It's kind of just unfair in a
Yeah.
sense. And again, I could probably relate that back to the actually autistic community where like there's so many non-autistics who don't understand how we
Yeah.
work, and it's just that we get treated differently as a result of that. So yeah.
Sammie, do you think because Michael maybe was similar to your brother, you had more comfort, more compassion, more understanding than maybe the average 6-year-old or 7-year-old or 8-year-old?
I think so, yeah. I think that's why I was drawn to him, and like I knew at the time, I was like this is someone who is different. And I think my instinct at the time was like, be kind, and like expect that it's not going to be like a completely normal friendship. Like, I think sometimes that also like deters people if they're trying to get close to
Yeah.
someone maybe with autism. They're like, this isn't like a normal conversation, this is like, I don't know how to connect. And I feel like I kind of went in with like a bit more understanding, and I was like, this isn't going to be totally normal. We're going to have like awkward pauses in a conversation sometimes. Like, it's not going to be completely smooth sailing every single time we hang out and every single time we talk.
Yeah.
But I think I went in kind of with that expectation and kind of with ways to navigate that I don't think everyone who's not familiar with
I'm
someone
sure,
autistic has.
I'm sure your parents know who you are and you've done many things to make them proud, but when they read that letter, did they get emotional at all? Just
I
to
shared it with them. I don't think my dad read it, but my mom liked it.
your mom, like, that's so
He
funny.
doesn't have Facebook, and I was like, I sent you something, and he's like, you sent me a lot of stuff.
Oh, I should read it.
I'll remind him.
I'm gonna open up to questions. One person has a question, and actually, Alan, my dad, has a I think it's Alan's iPad. Yeah, it's my dad. I'm gonna let him make his comment, and then I'm gonna go to Willard for a question. What you got? He's crying, I think, too.
I'm crying already, but I'm going to tell you, I'll try to get this out. I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity because your grandmother was so proud of you. I know she all her grandchildren, but every other word was Michael. Michael did this. Michael did this. Michael did this. Michael did this. She was so proud of her Michael. Just so you know. And my other statement, which is,
so for those of you that don't know, I know Michael through his grandmother. His grandmother worked for my father probably 20, 30 years ago. And so our families have known each other since I was very, very young.
She had a birthday. But in addition, you know, you go to University of Houston, one of my Facebook friends is a play-by-play person for the sports team.
Oh, we did a story on.
And who also did a letter. So
Yeah.
if you run into Gerald Sanchez, you tell him you have something in common. You know, you did a letter for the Unsealed.
But also it meant about your grandmother. Your grandmother was a huge supporter when I started the Unsealed.
But proud of you both, Sammie and Michael. It's an honor.
Thank you, Dad. And then Willard.
Right,
now let him go cry somewhere else.
I was gonna say, talking about Michael's grandma, like the few times that I met with her, she treated me like I was her own grandchild.
Yes.
Like she was amazing. Like we'd hang out and I'm like, I'm excited to see Michael, but like Michael's grandma just like, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But like, you know, she took us out to ice cream and stuff and to shows, and like she also, I mean, part of the reason I think I'm so close to Michael is like when we were younger, just have someone to drive us to be able to hang out together. So she was definitely big in us getting close, simply in being able to like physically get us together.
Michael's grandmother was probably one of the warmest people you ever meet. When you're around her, she would make you feel like you were a superstar. When I started the Unsealed, every day she was posted on her Facebook. She was my lead PR. Yeah. Check out this amazing story. So that is how we know each other. And when did she pass, Melissa?
She passed a little over a year ago.
Oh, it's a year already. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yep. So yeah, September was a year.
Wow. But amazing woman, kind woman, and definitely a grandma that was proud of her grandson.
Oh,
yeah. Willard, what's your question?
You know, I am unmuted. You know, it's kind of hard to follow after Alan there, as he was name dropping there. I'm sorry, buddy. I can't name drop on this one, but Sammie and Michael, kind of a out of left field question. When you guys first started your relationship and started, you know, knowing how it would be a little different, how did you navigate both of your friend groups? I mean, how did they accept you guys?
I don't know if this is the same for Michael, but my guess is it's a similar question, is that neither of us really had a friend group, which is part of what drew us to each other.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Mike?
Oh.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't really have any friends, at least at the time, or people I could count on. So yeah, I guess really can't answer that question for you, so I apologize for that. But yeah, I think just the similarities of us not having a big friend group kind of just drew us closer together, honestly.
So I did kind of miss the very top of that. What brought you two together? I mean, it's a unique kind of situation, a unique friendship, a deep friendship. What brought you guys together?
So I think, I mean, I said it a little before, my brother, he has autism and it's mild like Michael, and we're very lucky. He actually just got a college acceptance letter today, big brag. But I noticed, I was like, all right, when I met Michael, I was like, all right, I don't think anyone really said it to me. It was like, he's different too, but I was like, all right, he does some similar stuff that my brother does. And I was always taught like, it's going to be hard for Ryan to have friends, so always be kind. And I was like, you know what, if it's going to be hard for Ryan, my brother, to have friends, I have a feeling Michael might struggle in the same way. Let me reach out. And that's just kind of, I did it once and we just kind of stuck.
Love that. By the way, anyone else who has a question or comment that you guys can just let me know in the chat box. You can ask it there, or you can ask me. I can put the video to you and you can ask yourself, but it's an open conversation for anyone who has a question or a comment. But I think to Willard's question about like having your own friend group, you guys kind of created your own group. With Grandma Ronnie too.
Yeah, that the three of us, we were like tightest friend group.
Melissa, as a mom, do you think his friendship with Sammie changed the trajectory of his life? You know, he's about to graduate college. He has been very successful in many different ways. Do you think that this friendship was a very crucial and critical piece of his success?
I think that their friendship, their bond, has given him a little bit of a filler for the missing piece that he always felt a void with, because he's always embraced, with family, and he does his own thing. And even to talk to him or, just give him an opportunity, people would really be surprised. You hear autism and, it's like, oh my gosh, run for the hills. I didn't even know what autism was until I had my son. I never even heard of it, honest truth. So it was a whole learning experience for me as a parent, especially with all the obstacles we faced, even in the public school system, for years and years and years. And, we finally got it down to a science by the time he was finishing middle school, entering into high school, which is sad. I was a parent advocate for years for children and parents. I would sit at those committee meetings all the time and advocate because there's such an unknown to it. But Michael always felt like he was missing something. And then, he would either reach out to Sammie or she would reach out to him, or they would go hang out or whatnot. And then those concerns, those nerves, those feelings of sadness would just kind of dissipate. So I think that their friendship fills a void for him because he knows that she's always there. And again, it could be months that they don't talk. It could be, 3 days a week. I mean, whatever it is, but I think for both of them, they just know that they're there.
This is a lifelong friend, and that matters.
Yeah.
Knowing that you always have someone that has your back. What do you think other people?
15
go ahead.
years. Isn't that wild? I think it's in 15 years, give or take.
Yeah.
Michael, we're old now.
Oh goodness.
Watch it.
Oh goodness. What do you hope people learn from your friendship? When people see you and people learn your story, what do you hope people can take away? How do you hope that your friendship maybe inspires others?
Mike, do you want to go first?
I feel like from our friendship, I just hope people realize that people can be different. People can have different friendships. Like, you don't have to necessarily have like a certain black and white way of doing things. Like, no friendship is 100% perfect. Like, of course, there's going to be days where we all feel confused and stuff. Like, it shouldn't be like perceived by how media perceives it, kind of. Like, it should be perceived based on real stories and stuff like that. And I think that if people were to take more from real stories instead of just always relying on such a little narrative, if you get what I mean, it helps better to understand what friendship truly is.
I think that's a good point. I think I think people should remember also, reach out. Like, if you see someone, just try and talk to them. Like, it's scary sometimes, but even being like, hey, what's your name? Like, what's your Snapchat or whatever? Just try to connect. And I think that's like the scariest part. And I don't know, maybe I was too little at the time to be scared of that. And I was like, ooh, friend. I don't know, but like, reach out and you might wind up with someone that, I think you're right, Michael. It doesn't need to be someone you're like, all right, now we're best friends and we need to sleep over every other night and we need to talk every day and like sit together. Like, we don't have that like attached at the hip kind of friendship. And I mean, I think that's partially because of distance, partially because, Michael's too busy being like the smartest person in all his classes, graduating early, like
somewhat, yeah.
Superstar student over here, doesn't have time for me. It's okay. Like, you know what? We don't have the time to be like stuck together all the time, but that doesn't take away from the friendship. It doesn't make me feel like I'm missing out and like, I think Michael said it right, that you don't need to have like the like movie idea of friendship of someone who now is like finishes your sentences, best friend, like eating every meal together kind of person. It can be someone that you don't talk to for a while, but like, is just always there for you. That like when it comes down to it, they will be there. And I think people sometimes forget that. And I think I'm really lucky to have Michael be that person for me.
I think the other thing is too. Oh, sorry. Were you saying?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You go ahead first.
Like, I think the other thing too is that social media kind of just has changed the idea of a friendship. Really, like it's all more about popularity now instead of just like what is a true friend. Like I don't think people like within younger generations realize like what friendship truly means. Like I feel like because we were growing up in a time that it was not as technology driven and there wasn't as many social media options, it kind of just it just kind of different. And I just wish people would realize.
What does friendship mean to you?
I think for me, the friendship means someone I could count on. Like we don't have to always like check in with each other every time, but as Mom and Sammie have said, like it's like as soon as like we talk to each other, it's like we can pick up back from where we started.
I'm going to put Willie on the spot. Willie, do you have a question? Oops. Wrong thing.
I can find my unmute function.
You got it.
Hey there. You got me?
Parker.
Am I there?
Willie
Oh.
Parker.
Oh, there I am. All right. Hello. Yeah, I do have a question. In fact, Willie brought up about friend groups and that type of thing. You mentioned sort of clearing up the misconceptions of social media and all that. But for Melissa, and again, being that mom, you want to take on the world, and you probably want to jump on social media and clear up every single misguided comment that you see, but you can't do that, and there's no time to do that. And some people you just can't fix anyway. But who was Michael before Sammie came along? What kind of young man was he? What kind of kid was he before she came along? Was he more withdrawn? Who was he?
So Michael was very fortunate. Somebody had mentioned to me when he was about 15 or so months old that something just kind of seemed a little bit off. And I knew nothing. I mean, he was my first child planned, but he was happy. He just hung out. He really rarely cried. I could put him in the middle. I had a pool table in my house at the time. He'd be right in the middle of all the crazy action and nothing. Looking back, now that I've educated myself all these years, I see kind of where the deficits were, but I didn't know it at that point. So by the time I was about 18 months old, I had him evaluated. And again, they said it was a speech and language impairment. He would read to you any book. You could open any book anywhere that he's never seen before. He could decode and read anything he looked at, but he wouldn't talk to you. So there was zero communication skills, nothing. We had to teach him sign language real early on, basic sign language, because he wouldn't have a conversation or try to talk. And it wasn't because he wasn't able to physically, but it was that social emotional stigma that it just didn't click. And that's pretty much how he's lived his life. I mean, he's a very black and white kind of person. He got to a point probably by middle school where when people would joke with him, he would actually stop them and say like, wait, you're kidding, right? Like, was that a joke or were you being serious? Because he was able to qualify it, which is fascinating, but sometimes people would take offense to that because they think they're funny and he just didn't, So as a child going into a preschool situation, the preschool he was in was a special education preschool. So they were fully equipped to deal with what was going on with him. So he received speech, he received occupational therapy, he had some upper body, misabilities. He had a lot kind of going on, but to look at him, he looked totally typical, looked totally normal, if you will, whatever that means. So when I transitioned him into kindergarten and then unfortunately into a third school by first grade, the bigger concern was the adjustment socially, because the kids that he was with in kindergarten, it was a smaller class setting. So all those kids had something going on. Okay. Now I mainstream him into a public school setting, which is really where he belonged the whole time. And he was like outcasted, completely, utterly, absolutely not. This kid's a weirdo. We want nothing to do with him. And sadly, at the time, the teacher that he had in that first grade setting was not keen on disability. And I'll kind of leave it at that. And it made for a very, very difficult transition for him as a 6-year-old. Devastating, because she would keep trying to push him into a realm of wallflowers, and he really wasn't that way. With a little bit of encouragement, with a different placement, I think that his early elementary years could have been very, very different. By the time he got to 2nd grade, totally different between a friendship with Sammie, and also the teacher that he had. She saw him and she grabbed onto him hook, line, and sinker, and she miraculously undid a significant amount of damage that was done in a school setting the year before. So there's, and we're still in touch with her today. Huge game changer, because she allowed him to be himself and she would course correct him as needed.
2nd grade Miss Dello.
Yes.
She was amazing. I'd have breakfast with her every Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, you know, I have my own stuff going on, and we had like check-ins. Like she knew, I think you're right, that like she knew the people who were a little out, because like I have my own, some like behavioral stuff. And yeah,
but she just knew, honey. She was that teacher. Like she knew. And that's rare. And I was very fortunate as a parent that he had somebody grab onto him early on. And she was also very involved in all of his placements subsequent to that year, because she wanted to make sure that he was going to be insulated and given an opportunity. So, I mean, as a mom, like anybody else, do I go through and read all the garbage out there? I don't, because I know what the truth is. But you also have to remember that when you meet one person with autism, you meet one person with autism. That spectrum is so significant. And really, if society would focus on people skills and just acceptance in general in any format or platform, if people would realize that no one person's better than another, which is what I constantly tell, because I'm a teacher now as a result of my experience with my son. If that concept could just be drilled and conquered, like we're all different, period. You don't have to have a label or a concept of what you're supposed to be, that stigma. It would be a little bit more of a happier place. You know, he had a project last year in college, and it was a social media project, and he actually started a social media campaign and called it Asperger's Identity. Did it all by himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All by himself.
What was the Asperger's Identity Project, Michael?
So basically the idea, which I've stopped, but it's not like I don't want to not go back to it. Like when I get more time, I will want to, or when I feel more motivated, I should say. But like basically it was a 6-week project that you had to basically, it was like you had to post some stuff on social media, and like you have to post like share stories and stuff like that. And just also, I think the thing was you had to write 6 kind of long form or blog type content basically. And then I kind of just didn't really have much else to work with, honestly. And I just, all right, I'll use the autistic piece to work with that and just work with that. So yeah, I mean, it got a little bit of a following though. So yeah.
Willard has another question. His hand's raised. What you got?
Okay, I'm on mute. Hi, Willie Parker, for starters. This question's for Melissa. My ex-girlfriend had a son that was on the spectrum. This is probably a tough question for you, but as Michael started into school, how many different schools did you have to try to put him in to finally get a teacher that really understood what he was, and it wasn't anything about him other than knowing a child's on the spectrum and how to deal with it?
Sure. Yeah, not a tough question at all. He was actually in the public school setting from kindergarten all the way through. the difference was that he had to school hop because he was in a private preschool that worked with social, emotional, and communication delays. Then the kindergarten class that was a public school kindergarten class that was recommended was more for kids with social, emotional, and communication delays. So he was always in public school, but the kindergarten setting was smaller and a different school than he would have gone to. Unfortunately, I was told one thing at that time and it actually flipped to something else. He should have stayed in that school and mainstreamed with the rest of the kids over time. That's not what happened. They said, no, he has to go back to his homeschool for first grade. Well, had I known that, I would have left him in his homeschool for kindergarten, and the transitions would not have been as significant in such a pivotal point in a child's life. So I think it kind of threw him off because, 3 schools in 3 years is a lot for anybody.
A lot for
a
let
new person.
alone someone, with Asperger's.
Yes. Yeah.
Michael, are you proud of as we said, you're graduating college next semester?
Yeah, I'm graduating next semester for sure.
And with a degree in, remind me?
So management information systems, and I'm also minoring in marketing.
Are you proud of yourself?
I think so. Yeah.
Think so. You're not sure?
Yeah, honestly, like it's kind of tough just because like I'm basically taking college in a pandemic. Like that's basically where it was, but like it had its advantages and it had its disadvantages, kind of. Like I don't want to go too much into details, but like I'm glad that I was able to have this experience and I was able to kind of live how I was able to, and ultimately saved some money as a result for that. But like, yeah, I think that just throughout the pandemic, I've kind of just learned different things that I don't think the traditional school experience would have been like. And yeah, it's just I've had moments where they were great, where were great classes, and there were others that were just like, just take it for the credit and stuff like that.
Even bigger picture than that, though, and even beyond the pandemic, you were a kid that teachers didn't always do right by you, and kids didn't always do right by you, and school districts didn't always do right by you. As your mom just said, 3 different schools in 3 years, hard on anybody. And yet you had all these challenges and all these obstacles that maybe other kids don't have. Some I'm sure do. And yet here you are about to graduate from college and you're on a Zoom talking to a group of people, asking you questions that you don't know what they're going to ask. And as you mentioned, your condition is characterized by having trouble with communication, which clearly you are not having trouble with tonight.
Yeah, not tonight.
Or maybe not now as much at all, ever, because of the growth. When you look at the big picture from where you started at 6 years old, 7 years old, when you met Sammie, to where you are today, does that make you pat yourself on the back?
Like I honestly do feel proud of kind of just the journey I've been through, honestly, and just how I've kind of started from a young child to kind of just almost graduating. Honestly, it's kind of weird, honestly, that it's kind of already over.
You're an adult. Welcome.
Because honestly, school's been my whole life, basically. Like I've basically kind of just been so used to it, and now I'm like going into the working world. Like it's just feels so weird. Like I wish I couldn't do that, honestly, but I know that's how
I want to stay in college too. Sammie, you have seen his whole journey or most of his journey. Are you proud of him? Have you seen the growth? Have you seen his evolution?
I am proud as hell. Like, oh my God. I mean, I'm just so happy to be friends with Michael. And I think when he told me he was graduating a year early, I think that's when it kind of clicked. And I'm like, he's really going places. Like he has hit his stride. And even if it's not all the way there socially, like he has found his spot. Like he is so hardworking in school. He is so smart. And every time we check in with each other, I'm like, how's school going? He's like, oh, it's fine. I have an A and whatever. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, you just said you have an A. And that's basically our conversations, that like, I know there's been so many other roadblocks, but not even speed bumps, I'll say. And I just, from where he was when we were younger, and sometimes our conversations would almost be like an interview because he really wasn't there socially. To hearing him talk tonight, I'm so proud of him.
Are you proud of yourself too? I mean, to have the maturity that you had at 7 years old, I think it's pretty impressive.
I don't know. I don't want to say it and sound almost like I'm like the hero who is like, he's different, I'm gonna rescue him. Like, I don't want to sound like that kind of person, because more than anything, I was like, this is someone who needs a friend, and I need a friend, and let's be friends. And so I don't know if I want to say I'm proud of myself for it, because I don't want it to sound like it was some like me trying to get like universal brownie points or whatever. But I'm just lucky that Michael's my friend.
I love that answer. Melissa, are you like, where are your tissues?
You know, these kids, you know, watching them both grow up over the years and you know, their friendship develop, it's been a blessing. There's no other word for it. You know, they are fantastic. They're both going places, you know. Everybody's on a different path. Everybody's got different goals and visions. But there's not a doubt in my mind with both of them that they'll be the utmost successful individuals. Society needs to look out.
Sammie, what do you want to do?
I want to be a lawyer.
What about you, Michael?
So for right now, I'm aiming to just shoot for Walt Disney Company. That's really where I'm trying to go for, honestly.
What do you want to do for them?
Like, I think just honestly, the truth is, like, after seeing so many stories, like just from past Imagineers and kind of, especially with the shift in the leadership that's really going to kick off starting in January, like, I want to just be able to contribute kind of ideas and things and just kind of use University of Houston's Bauer kind of just as an advantage. Kind of, I just, like, for now I'm gonna start like through like maybe like data visualization or something to do with data, because that's what management information systems basically is. Just, I got to get my feet into the door. That's all I want to do. I do want to do the Disney college program if I don't get into the professional internship, but like I want to, that's where I want to work, honestly. And unless things change or an offer comes up, that's kind of where my goal would be.
I'm sure you will get there. I just want to open it
Can
up.
I add some?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Can I add something to my being proud part?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever heard Michael say that many words in a row, and it was great.
It was great.
And I say that with love. You know, I say that with love, but I don't think I've ever heard him like that. So, and talk about like progress, like, and growing up, I think, Michael, you're like, that was great.
Let me know if I say too much, because it's like, I don't want to cut anyone off.
Does anyone else have a question or comment? Anyone else can chime in if they want. I just want to make sure everyone gets a chance. But anyone who has a question or comment? I'm going to go to my mom because I bet you she has something.
I have a question, actually.
Ooh, Kwesi.
Hi, Michael. My name's Kwesi. Nice to meet you, and thank you for sharing your experience. I guess the question that I have is, from your relationship with Sammie, as well as I think you kind of hinted towards this, the pandemic and going to school in the pandemic, what lessons do you think you've learned from both of these different aspects that you can bring with you to the working world, that you could bring with you to the working world?
I think at the end of the day, I feel like it's more kind of just being honest with yourself and being honest about your friendship and stuff like that. Like, I feel like if you're honest about things, like, it's so much more beneficial than just like just faking your way through it. Almost like, things need to be honest in life. I think that's the biggest key element for the working world.
Sammie, do you want to answer the question too?
Thank you.
I've still got 2.5 more years of college.
You have time to figure out what you're carrying over in
But
the world.
talking about being authentic, yeah. And then I'm probably gonna do some grad school before I go to law school, because no. But I think Michael talking about being authentic and like in the working world, I think he nailed it. And that's kind of what I was saying before, like you're gonna sometimes question yourself and watch yourself with different friendships. And I think this friendship has taught me that like faking it like that and being like, oh my God, was that weird? It's exhausting. And when you have someone that you can text something and be like, that was probably weird, but I know he doesn't care. Like he'll find it funny. Like it's a relief. It feels so good.
Be able to just be.
And yeah, just be yourself. And if a person doesn't like you for yourself, they're probably not a very good friend.
I think Dr. Seuss said we're all a little weird. We're all a little weird.
I want to just piggyback on that though, especially for both of them, but really for anybody. Flexibility is another thing, and adaptability are two things that go hand in hand that I know, at least for Michael, he's had to kind of wager his way around. Because in his mindset, when he's committed to something, when that shifts, he struggles with that. More substantial than a neurotypical individual. So that has been a huge learning curve for him. Not that he minded learning online. He's totally fine with, in-person or online classes, but the amount of flexibility that he had to adjust to was definitely a game changer for him. And I think that'll help him in the working world, understanding that not everything is black and white and concrete, that sometimes on a whim, you got to change it up and make it work.
I'm not going to ask you if you're proud of your son, but you have to be so proud of your son.
I am so
know
proud.
you are. I know you are. It's not an if, it's just a definite. You have so many.
He earned it. He worked for it. He hit a substantial amount of obstacles. And he was told so many times in roundabout ways that he's not going to amount to much, that he won't be able to do much, that he won't be able to succeed in certain things from kids and adults. And it was just not an option in our household. Like he just was going to stay on his straight and narrow and do his thing, and words hurt. Hopefully he learned that in that journey, those that are really more envious than anything, or frustrated that how can this kid do it and I can't, that mindset. He's not at all full of himself. He's not egotistical by any stretch of the means. But I over time have taught him to have somewhat of a thick skin, because people are mean.
Yeah.
You don't have to have autism to experience mean. People are mean. And it's just a society that we're in. But he's faced stuff head on and plowed right through it. I mean, he is way further than anybody ever gave him credit that he would be. And he'll continue.
I'm proud of you, Michael. And I'm proud of you too, Sammie. Mom, I'm gonna let you say something because you always say something really sweet. Can you unmute? There you are.
I'm sorry, Lauren. I'm sorry. What did you say, Lauren?
But I wanted to let you make a comment because you always say something very sweet.
Oh, yes, I'd love to.
Uh-oh, you're freezing.
Well, you are a lovely person, kind heart, and so are you, Michael. And I'm so proud of both of you because you've supported each other, you've guided each other. You're both going to achieve great things in life because you have a good heart and a good brain. And I wish you both all the best. Continued friendship, continued success, continued happiness. I know it's going to be there for you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren, you're muted now.
Unmute. Sorry, I muted myself so that we wouldn't have feedback because my mom is in the next room visiting for the holidays. But Stacy, I believe, who is your Stacy, says there's nothing you both can't do. You are amazing people. And I think everyone here feels the same way about both of you. And I'm excited to see what you guys both do next. And I'm glad you guys will have each other to support one another along the way. I'm just gonna unmute everyone so everyone can say goodnight, but I hope everyone has happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm just trying to unmute everyone. You guys can unmute yourself. Oops, I think I just muted you, Melissa. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Bye,
night.
guys.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New
Great
Year.
job.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Happy holidays.